gave me a quote.
Oh gosh.
I have never seen somebody break more tennis rackets than Tom Stadum. He received the single most point penalties of any Fargo North Spartan in program history.
We welcome you to TWI Interviews. I'm your host, Ike, along with David Big D3 Youngs. We have a special guest who is Tom Stadum. He has emerged as a wealth management mogul in the Fargo market, and used to play some state high school level tennis back in the day. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, it is an honor and a privilege to be here. I actually, fun fact, I haven't told you guys this yet. I was at Courts Plus over the weekend for my daughter's birthday party in Fargo, and I hadn't been there since I think since we've lost at EDC playing against Mandan, I believe.
The
been a while. I know it's been a while.
What was the takeaway? You know, do you miss the courts now? They're blue and green instead of red and green?
Yeah.
It's what was your takeaway?
You know, it was a little bit of nostalgic for sure, right? I went over to I want to get some Babolat rackets. Like I've got the itch to play again. I haven't played hardly at all, but my path after high school was I actually raced sailboats at the University of Minnesota for a second, and I got really into sailing. And then I started playing hockey in my mid-20s. And then I like golf occasionally, not a big golfer, but the main things I do now are sailboat racing and then playing hockey, occasional skiing, whatever. But I've got the itch to play again, guys.
Hell yeah, really?
Hey, it's a lifelong sport.
That's right.
I got to ask you, as far as sailboat racing goes, where do you race? Do you race Detroit Lakes area, down in the cities?
Yeah, so we, at this point, like we used to travel around a bit. Now we just race on Pelican. So Pelican is the only lake it's pretty much the only lake in that area where you can race. People race at Leech Lake. People race in Gull Lake or the Gull Lake area, and by Niswood, Pequot Lakes. And then once you get into Minneapolis, I mean, you got like Olympic sailors in Minneapolis. It's insane.
Oh, and obviously you've got a boat. Do you have a name for the boat? Like, is it the SS Stadum? Is it the SS Spartan?
You know, oddly enough, we have not named our boat yet, which is really lame. We don't have and there's no good reason. We've had this one for what is it? 5 years? I don't know. We haven't named it. Our old boat was called what was it called? Water Hog.
The Water Hog?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we'll put a guarantee out there by the end of this interview. Isaac and I will come up with a name for your boat.
Okay, I'll write it down. I got my notes. Let me get my podcast.
Right.
Okay, got them in front of me.
Yep.
Game on. Game on. Jen.
Wins are going to be increased exponentially.
Yes. I got second place last year, and I was on a hot streak, gents. I mean, we're talking I had a good run, and I didn't win last season. Dang it.
Hey, nothing wrong with first loser.
Yeah, I know. I was like, hey, if you ain't first, you're last. So.
But Tom, kind of the reason why I wanted to have you on the pod, was like you're low key like my idol, man. I don't know, like
oh man,
dangerously cheesy.
I spend a lot of times in my mornings listening to podcasts.
Yeah,
I was looking for new business ones to listen to, and I came across your Happy with Money podcast.
Yep.
Maybe like 2-3 months ago.
Okay.
And listened to the first one and I was hooked. I think I finished in like 2 weeks, just cruise through them. And Noah Jesdal, he is a classmate of David's, whatnot, a couple years younger than myself. I found out that he was working there. And then I saw that you guys had a different podcast, Laminate Money. So I follow that one week to week. You guys post that on Wednesdays, but how'd you guys get into the podcast game?
Yeah, the podcast. So we've been a big proponent of organic content. So there's obviously there's paid and then there's organic, and we are absolutely obsessed about building an audience for what we are doing. So we have a really unique service offering here at Fjell, and that means pretty much nothing to anybody if there's no one to buy it, right? So like we've been really focused on playing the long term and creating content that people like ourselves here that we actually consume. And another something that I realized was I just personally wanted to get better at communicating. I spend a lot of time. I'm like decent at communicating in front of audiences. I've been fortunate enough throughout life to be able to speak in front of like actual real life people. But I realized I wasn't really good in front of a camera, like talking to a camera or in front of a camera. And so some of this came from I just wanted to get better and just create better content, just increase my personal skills. And because obviously that translates into, earnings power. And so that's really where some of this came from. Is like we want to grow an audience. We want to have relevant content for people, like your audience as well. Like this is really relevant to, guys our age versus just like, blog articles, like who wants to read that anymore? So I would say it's multifaceted. Some has to do with just my personal skills and just becoming better. Some of it has to do with, just the content our audience wants to consume. And then also we've got a unique story to share.
Yeah, I love that. What have you learned along the way of, your podcast journey? I know you guys post every once in a while with the Happy and with Money one, and then you're super consistent with the laminate money.
Yeah. So, gosh, what have I learned? Well, I've learned how big the platforms are. So I don't know if you guys are on YouTube at all.
Yeah.
YouTube is just mind-blowingly big. Like,
Billions
it
and
is
billions
so,
and billions and
like
billions.
these platforms is so big. Like people have such a difficult time understanding how big the internet is. Like I think I had a post today about budgeting. There's 258 million people in our country that have a budget of some form. You can't even comprehend 58 million people. Like it's so big. And I think that like I've always understood the power of the internet, like how many people are on the internet. I think, doing content creation, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, we're not really too big on the other platforms. The internet is so big. It is so big. We had one of our reels over the last summer. Isaac, producer Ben, he just posted out. It got like 35,000 views in just like in the second on Instagram. And we're not even big, like we're just tiny. So that's probably the biggest thing is like, I've always understood the power of the internet, but actually like being in it and seeing how big these platforms are and just how many people are just watching their phones. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I can definitely attest to that because you hear about all these people with, 1 million subscribers on YouTube or something like that. And you haven't heard of them before. Like there's a lot of people out there who are massive on YouTube who I haven't heard of. And then you stumble across them and you're like, wow, this person has a huge following and I haven't even seen them before, which is obviously, the algorithm is pumping out different things, towards myself, whatnot. But I kind of want to get into how you started Fjell Capital. How'd you get into, wealth management?
Yeah. What's the origin story? So I'm fortunate enough to be a third generation advisor. So my grandfather in 1961 wanted to get out of the car business. He was a partner at a Pontiac dealer in Moorhead, and he wanted to get into, being at that time it was called a stockbroker. So my family's been doing this for a really long time. We've always been, for the vast majority of our history, we've worked for somebody else. And in 2013, the business school, NDSU's business school, is like right behind me, a couple buildings away. I graduated 2 weeks later, joined my dad at UBS, and it was within a couple years of being inside UBS. I've always been one to really pay attention to high level trends. So not so much like what is happening in the Fargo market, but what's happening nationally, like where are advisors moving, where are clients moving, where are companies investing. And I pretty quickly realized after being at UBS that the puck was moving towards the independent space. So I wasn't ready to move, obviously, at 23 to go out on my own. But I think in relatively a couple years in, I figured out, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. Like I want to actually do something on my own. I want to be something different. Always had a little bit inside of me of just like, and I think a lot of people from the Midwest are like this to some degree. They just do things different just for the sake of doing things different, even if there's not a great reason. I've always like had that pretty deep within me. And so fast forward, I finished paying my dad off. I bought the business in 2015, spent 5 years paying him off. And then in over COVID, work from home, I was like I was speaking to Dan, just, really the founding teammate with me here. It's like, hey man, this might be the time to take a risk. I was like, we don't have a lot of responsibilities. I was like, we can pull this off, man. I was like, I think this is our time. So COVID happened. So in the middle of like April of 2020, we decided, all right, let's send a flyer. I was like, we're going to send a massive flyer and undertake a massive project of moving the clients who wanted to move with us to Fjell. So it was this like really this multi-year process of understanding who I was, the opportunities, in our market here locally, and also just nationally, what was happening in the wealth management space to come to the realization of, all right, this is what I want to do. And then the opportunity presented itself in COVID, and we nailed it, pretty much perfectly from a timing perspective.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So just to kind of clarify, so you're a third generation advisor or whatnot. You work for UBS, but you owned your own office type of thing for UBS, or?
Yeah, how does it work? Good question. So we didn't technically own anything, but people have worked for the Stadum family for, some of our clients have worked with us forever. So there's this, a lot of these big, and this isn't true in the wealth management space. There's always just these tugs and pulls between employees and companies, like who owns a relationship.
Sure.
And so we technically didn't own it, but within UBS, I, essentially paid for the revenue stream of our client base. So if, had I not been there, and my dad would have needed to find another junior partner to bring on to buy him out, or and no one does this anymore, but for those big, they're called wirehouses. People never just retire and just their client list don't just randomly get, just sprayed across a bunch of different advisors. Like it's in the client's best interest to have a seamless transition from advisor A to advisor B. So, and then now, of course, Fjell is like just an independent, shop that I personally own 100% of.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, going off of that, Tom, like what you just shared, I mean, it's all pretty impressive stuff. You mentioned taking risks. You're doing all of this at a fairly young age. I think that there's this quota that, or I should say this trend that, high school student, go off to college, get a job, work your way up. And that takes a while. You're jumping into some of this stuff at a fairly young age. What would you say, whether it be amidst COVID, when you're making those big, when you're taking risks, some of those times where it's been the first time maybe taking a big risk, what's like the mental process there? And is there like oh crap, we're really doing this? Or how do you mentally get over the hump?
Yeah. So I think, if you were to ask any entrepreneur, they're actually very risk averse, which is weird. And what I mean by that is like, I'm totally an entrepreneur. Like that's who I'm an entrepreneur who happens to do wealth management. That's what I tell people. I'm like, this is just at the core of who I am as an entrepreneur. So I think if you were to, talk to a lot of, real entrepreneurs, they're actually very risk averse, where they have this just deep, there's something deep inside them that says, I can do this better myself. Like, I don't need other people. I can do this better. And so like, to me, like long-term, and this is Dan as well, it's like, we felt like this was the least risky thing to do, was to take a huge risk and leave. And so we were staring down 40 years of, potential earnings personally for our families, hundreds of clients, families that we've worked with forever. We're like, how can we best serve them? How can we, what's the least risk for our family? And to us, it was, just starting our own business. So With that being said, though, to do a business right, it does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of intentionality. And I think where I'm at as an entrepreneur today, I hope in 5 years, I'm like 5x where I am now in terms of skills, in terms of my leadership abilities, access to capital, etc. But it's very much on a path, on a continuum. And yeah, again, and I think entrepreneurs as well are control freaks.
Yeah.
Talk to Eddie. It's like, no, you value, in some ways you give up freedom as an entrepreneur to gain control.
Yeah. And another thing I really like that something that you've done is building the team around you. I mean, you referenced Dan Schuster is who you're referencing, who is also a member of the Walking Phoenix, a band.
Me in when I never wanted to. I don't even understand the words you say. Trying so damn hard, but you're pushing me away. And I don't need your love, and I don't need you. Don't keep knocking, 'cause nobody's home. And save your breath, I'm better off alone. I don't care now what you say about me. I'm right where I want to be.
There we go. Shout out. Let's go. Best band in Fargo.
I was listening to their album like 2 weeks ago, just on repeat. There's one song. Maybe I can get their permission. I'll put it in the podcast.
Nice.
So you got Dan, and then you got Noah Jesdal, and then Jacob Radke, who is the LinkedIn guru and whatnot. And then
that's right.
Then the most recent hire, Josh Mayo. So how have you kind of built your team, and how have you found just these like incredible pieces to the pie so far?
So any great company they're only as good as their team, right? And so, like, personally, when I think of myself, like, my ability to create something here to attract amazing talent is like key to our success. Like, we have a really, like, our Odyssey platform, our subscription service is growing really fast. That is like that business we've created is just awesome. Like, it's an underserved market. There's tailwinds. It's just wonderful. But like, it would mean nothing without an amazing team. So we've just spent ultimately all of our content for our community, which you guys probably see often. Like, it's for two sets of people. It's for potential clients, and then it's for people like when we need to hire people. Like, we have a brand. We have we basically have clout in the community to just get really qualified, talented people. And then with that too, we've been just really intentional about being into the colleges. We have inroads with NDSU, for example, where we can just show up and say, hey, we've got a really cool opportunity. We're actually a wealth manager. Like, we're not a bank. Like, we actually have opportunity here that's not working at a bank. Like, would you mind giving us access to your classroom? Like, we can share some thoughts on whatever you want to speak, in return, get in front of some of your best students. So we've been pretty intentional about building a team, so that we get the absolute best possible talent here to, just to fulfill the mission of, again, there's so much we can do, and our market is so big.
How did you personally find Radke? I'm super curious about that.
Oh gosh,
NDSU visit or what?
So so this would have been a couple years ago. We I've stayed connected with particularly one of our professors at NDSU, and I just emailed them, said, hey, we're looking for a couple interns. We want your we ultimately want your best. What's crazy is, like, if you're ever in my shoes, like, you can walk into a college classroom, and you can in the course of 5 minutes pick out the top 3 students in the room. If there's 30, like, no problem. And so Radke, he was Jacob, he stuck out, like Radke and producer Ben. If you remember producer Ben from back in the day, they were just ripper smart. And I can say, Jacob's, in terms of just a hire, like, Jacob's 1 in 100. I mean, just really, really rare in terms of his abilities and talents and drive and like what he wants to do and what we're doing. I mean, part of it was just, luck is luck is sits at the crossroads of preparation and opportunity. Yep. And so with Radke, I mean, we ultimately got lucky, but we also did enough to be able to, catch somebody like him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you're saying, Tom, about like how you chose your team. We live in a time now in the workplace where I think we're seeing healthy work environments shine more, but we're also seeing the ones that aren't also have a light on them. And so because of that, I think employers or hopefully at least are being more intentional about the culture, how they hire and whatnot. And it sounds like you've got a good thing going. I want to shift a little bit as you can tell from my attire, I do not work in wealth management. I work in marketing.
Let's go.
So let's talk content a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
You spoke on it a little bit earlier. And I think right now there's this aura of everybody and their cousin, young adults is, I'm going to get big on LinkedIn. I'm going to write a blog. I'm going to get big on TikTok or Reels. Only a few make it. Yeah. You've established yourself as a leader in that space. What do you think have been some key components to that or misconceptions that people think that it takes to essentially build a brand?
Yeah, totally. I've got a lot of thoughts on this. Most people, I mean, they just simply, I mean, the cold hard truth is they just give up. And I think what's weird, a common thing is because we get asked quite frequently about our content and our strategy and whether it's working or not, which I always tell them like, yeah, it's definitely working. I was like, it's worth it. Now, people like when you start doing content, people are like, oh, I don't know what to say. I'm like, that's actually why you need to start writing in the first place. And I was just telling Noah this earlier today. I was like, part of your development, like you need to write, because if you're not writing, you're not going to understand what you believe. And I think like writing is an extension of thinking, and then the gap, like a lot of people don't make the connection between, thinking and writing. And then if you've made that connection, it's like, well, just post it. And then what people don't understand, they're like, oh, I'm worried about what people are going to think of me. First of all, people don't care about us. Like people don't care about what I do for a living. All they want to know from Tom Stadum is, what can you do for me? That's all they care about. And secondarily, if your content sucks, the algorithm isn't going to push it, so no one's going to see it in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I think people have all these misconceptions, but in the Fargo market, I always tell people like, hey, this is so easy to win here because no one's doing it.
Right. Yeah.
100%. I mean, that's so spot on. And I think what sticks out is what you said. Most people give up, after, they have 2, 3, 4 posts that don't go evergreen, they quit. And I think as old school as it is, the more you do it. And what you said about writing, I'm biased here because I was a common journalism major.
Nice.
But writing is thinking. It absolutely is. And not only is it going to help you, I think, learn more about yourself, help you discover what you really believe. In my limited experience as a young professional, it is unbelievable how many people there are in the professional world who can't write a simple email and have it, portray a strong voice. So if that's a skill that young adults can harness, like it's going to go a long ways.
Totally. I just had a LinkedIn post, I think, and it wasn't really well received, which whatever. It's getting decent traction. But the post was, J.K. Rowling is known for Harry Potter. Beyonce is for her music. Warren Buffett's for his annual letters. Taylor Swift is known for her pop music. Stephen King's for his, novels, whatever. All of these things like can be, all these different models can be circled back to somebody took the time to write something. Like Taylor Swift, before she's Taylor Swift, she's sitting in her bedroom writing, or in her office writing songs. Before Warren Buffett is even Warren Buffett, like he's sitting in his office writing his annual letter. Same with Jamie Dimon, Stephen King as well. Like writing is actually writing is like one of the most scalable businesses ever. I oftentimes think about the Bible, for example. It's like one of the oldest books on planet Earth. It's like, why does it exist? Objectively, taking religion out of it, why does it exist? Someone wrote something down. It's like,
yeah,
and it's like existed forever. And yes, like David, to your point, there's young people don't even understand it. But it's so like we're at the point now from a content creation perspective. It's like our podcast becomes content. Like created a huge slide deck for a presentation I did last week, and I was like, now I have it. I mean, I potentially have hundreds of LinkedIn posts just from that, that one piece of content. So it's a big deal. I'm something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, it's the trunk of the tree. And the branches, the content, it all spawns from it. So hey, if you like writing, you can be in my corner any day.
Yeah, that's right. And again, it totally sets you apart. Like all the the algorithms, like where we all spend time, like these platforms need content. Like they need it. Like LinkedIn wants to sell more ads. Like Facebook wants to sell ads. They need people to be producing content. So I'm like, people are there. We know anytime somebody goes to the bathroom, what are they doing? They're sitting on their phone scrolling someplace. Like everyone does that. Like there's so many, like these algorithms, they need it. And so if you can be one to like produce good stuff and rise above, it's just, it's just going to translate into, earnings power.
And I kind of want to go back to the Happy with Money podcast, just because that is my favorite podcast that I listen to right now. It was number 2 behind a Barstool one, but you have overcame it because you guys just interact so well, and you guys are always interacting with me. And it's like, hey, you got that personal connection, it seems like, with this super cool thing that you're listening to. But how do you find these guests? These people have just unreal stories on that podcast. How do you find them?
People don't often know is like having a podcast is an open door. Same with like producing content on LinkedIn. It's not like you don't necessarily close business on a LinkedIn post. You don't necessarily close business in a podcast. Like what it is an open door. And it's like, you guys now know me and I know you because of this platform. Like that's valuable. That's cool. Like good on you for doing this. And like, I've done the same thing with, with Happy with Money. Like, but how we've gotten the guests is, I mean, it's just mainly my network. It's people that I know or, have asked for referrals into. And it's been, we've got some cool things. We haven't been pushing it the last couple months just with some, just staffing transitions that we've been dealing with. And then I was gone in Florida for a month in February. So we're a little bit behind there, but it's an open door, and it's a pretty easy platform to network up to, so it's like, if you're at this level and you want to get to somebody who's 3 levels higher than you, it's a pretty good platform to, network up to.
Yeah. And that in the morning, pretty much every single morning I look, is there a new episode?
Oh man.
I'm just waiting for it.
I got to do you on there, and we've got some awesome guest ideas that we just have to. I got to get Jacob and Josh in a room and say, all right, guys, let's start pulling the triggers on these people.
Let's go. I love it. But so you mentioned that you took a little bit of time off, and you went down to Florida, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Which I think that's super cool. You get a chance to, go to a different place, spend some time with your family, having that, work-life balance is, that it's kind of like a key word or a key phrase nowadays. And then when we were initially trying to get you on the podcast, you had a caveat, which I did not know what that word was before, but you're like, hey, I don't do like podcasts after this specific time, most of the time, because I have family time after that. And I was like, dang, this guy has got it going on. Like that says a lot about you and kind of your values and stuff like that. Can you just shed some light on kind of your take on that whole thing?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I got 2 young kids and they just mean everything to me. And everyone says that they grow up so fast. And I mean, Lucy's turning 4 in a couple days, and I don't even fully understand what that means. But Yeah, I am like pretty protective, over my time with them because I think in some ways, being a dad is it's a really challenging job in a way that no one really talks about. Like I get to see my kids for 2 hours a day. I mean, that sucks. And like I can't. Like I could work less. Yes, I could. So there is some of this is like I choose to stay here, till 5:36, and I work through lunch, and so like yes, I do work a lot, or not a lot, but I work, I'm putting in 9-10 hour days, pretty regularly. So that's definitely a choice to me. Um, but when it comes time to out of office, like I want to be there. Warren Buffett says like the true measure of success is to have the people you want to say I love you when you're 85.
Mm-hmm.
Like who cares about all the money? Who cares about like fame? Who cares about if you don't if you're just lonely, right? So and then on work-life balance, I think I'm again like I would say we like at Fjell we all grind hard. My thoughts on work-life balance isn't so much like a 4-day work week, for example, or flexible office hours. And we have flexible office hours. Like we don't have vacation policy. Like it's pretty flex here, right? But what I've told my team is like, hey, let's do 10 years worth of work in 5 years. So, and then when you guys do compound interest, like when you guys see, like once you have $1 million and the market goes up 30%, you get 300,000. And so there's some math. So what we do here and what I've personally done is like, I'm going to grind, pretty hard when I'm young in hopes of getting, covering multiple years worth of work, shrinking those down. So like the sooner you can make more money, the better off you are long term. And then that's how early retirements happen. That's how 50-year-olds can retire. And so that's my thought of work-life balance. And that's why I don't think like the 4-hour work week is necessarily going to work, because there will always be people who arbitrage it away. And like somebody will always show up on Friday morning to grind because they want to get ahead, and they will get ahead. And I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think that's a great perspective, Tom. And I think that's something that like me personally, like I am trying to find that balance right now. Like I'm probably a hypocrite because like I'm big advocate of like, leave work at the door and whatnot. But then heck, tonight I'm gonna edit a few clips.
Yeah.
And so what would you say to people in their 20s, like finding that balance? Because I think there's a lot of people in their 20s who quote unquote want to make it. They want to retire early. They want to make it up the ladder and quickly. But also we live in an era where quiet quitting was a big thing for a little while.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot more people much more COVID taught us that you can work from home, which I'm not saying is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it's something that I think that's a big conversation right now for young people.
Yes, I think like there's no question, like if you want to do something big, like what is a startup? A startup is like something you do 20 years worth of work in 5 years. That's essentially what a startup is.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like time that's just condensed down. So if a startup's wants 10,000 or like so that's what a startup is. So I think some of this stuff from a work-life balance, I don't think people have it quite right. Again, I think people typically think of work, they think of it during work weeks, or they think about it relatively in a short amount of time. And I think it makes more sense to, or I guess this is how I've chosen to live, is like I have a different perspective on work-life balance. And I want to, again, try and shrink or, do more and cover more ground, and have my team and I like have us cover more grounds, earlier in life, so that we can have more financial freedom, or really not financial freedom, just freedom in general. So I think first of all, like you have to grind. Like it is difficult. Like so many people want to be an entrepreneur, and it's just in so many ways it just sucks. Like it's really hard, and you sign up for things you don't even know that you're signing up for, and it's hard, and it kind of breaks people down. So I don't think that I just don't think so. I think it comes from a good place, the work-life balance. But also like there is like if people want to be rich and people want work-life balance, like those are like kind of not, they don't really jibe well enough together. And then when you have like the equation for happiness is reality minus expectations. And so like if you want to be wealthy, for example, you want work-life balance, and so you look at your situation, your reality, and your expectations, and then you get like more expectations in reality, you end up with negative happiness. And so yeah, I don't know. Does this make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to say, put those last 5 minutes that you just said on a poster. I think that's spot on. And I think too, like we are at a place where work-life balance is almost sometimes, for the better or worse, used as a buzzword in society.
Yeah.
And it's, how do we define that? And so I appreciate your thoughts there. What do you say, Isaac? Should we talk a little tennis?
Yeah. I'm down.
I'm going to be extreme. Okay. Yeah. Let's just go. I'll do my best to keep up with you guys.
So for our millions of viewers, Tom obviously has cut his teeth in wealth management, in the content game. Long before then, I can remember watching him at the Fargo North tennis courts as a young lad, playing against the Fargo South Bruins. Tom, just tell us a little bit about your days with the Spartans back on the court.
The Spartans. Oh gosh. So my dad was a tennis player, and my uncle Kent was very into tennis, and so we've had tennis has been a little bit of a Stadum family thing. And so growing up, I played hockey, golf, and tennis. Like those are like my sports. And then we were fortunate enough to go skiing a fair amount. And my dad, oddly enough, was a ski bum in Vale from 1970 to 1972. Hilarious.
Just out there.
I wish I could have been a fly on a wall when he was doing his thing. So it turns out I just wasn't good at golf. And then I didn't grow enough. I didn't go through puberty until later, probably like my early and junior year or something like that. All I remember is I was late and I was therefore small. And so I was like in crush playing hockey. So I was like, hockey's not for me. I started playing tennis in 7th grade. And so tennis just kind of chose me. I was like, okay, I didn't choose the racket.
The racket chose you.
The racket chose me.
Well, that's great to hear. And I wanted to let you know. So obviously, the legendary Greg Unruh was your high school coach.
He was.
I let Unruh know that we were going to have you on the pod. He gave me a quote.
Oh gosh.
I have never seen somebody break more tennis rackets than Tom Stadum. He received the single most point penalties of any Fargo North Spartan in program history.
Oh.
No, that's not true at all. He said he's a fun kid and really, really enjoyed coaching him. Super good guy.
Oh, Unruh, if you're listening, shout out, man. Shout out. I definitely I wasn't a racket thrower, but you guys, you ready for my rackets senior year? So I had some crappy Dunlops with leather grips.
Ooh. Oh, old school.
They were so bad. I don't even know why I played with them. I think I used to play. We still go to the Fargo Country Club, so that's where I spent a lot of time playing. I took lessons with there, and they had. I mean, Dunlop was just their brand, so I ended up always playing Dunlops, which is bizarre because no one plays with Dunlop rackets anymore.
They make great tires, though. I'll tell you that.
I know, right? So I had these just insanely just bizarre. I mean, no one played with them, and they had leather grips, and of course I didn't use the leather grips, but that was my I never had a cool. But I'm gonna buy some Babylon rackets, guys. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Are those the hot sticks these days, or?
I would say, Babylon's been pretty steady. I tell you what, though, good old school Wilson is making a comeback.
Really?
Okay. A lot more down here in the Twin Cities. I I teach on the side of Edina Country Club and string at a club in Bloomington, and the number of people with the big W on their racket is growing. What do you think, Isaac?
Really?
Yeah, I think there's a racket called the Wilson Blade. I think that's like the most popular racket. Is it not, David?
I would say the Blade is, yeah, it's up there. That's the one that like Serena used the Blade. Does Djokovic still use the Blade? He uses head, but he did at one point.
Okay. So what are the head sizes and string tensions? What are we at? Are we at 95s? Are we
No.
The days of the 95 are slowly waning. I mean, you're seeing a lot like the rackets that you're seeing at high level college pro tour are 98 to 100 typically.
Okay. All right. And then I know string tension. I mean that's all over the board, but
yeah. Well, I tell you what, just to get you back in, maybe we can fit you with like a Wilson Blade 120 head size.
Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. I'll be that guy out there. I'm writing that down. The Wilson Blade. That's the one to get. The
Wilson Blade. Yep. Or you go, Isaac. What were you saying?
I was gonna say, what head size do you have, David?
So I'm ripping the head. I'll show you real quick.
Oh, here we go.
Interactive experience.
Yep. I wanted to come on here because I needed you guys to tell me what to get. Because I'm going to start playing. I told my wife last night too. I was like, hey, I might hop in a league here at Courts Plus. Oh, there she is.
There she be. So we got the head speed mid pro or mid plus.
Okay.
100 size head. Got some Yonex strings in it actually.
Some Yonex. Okay.
Shout out Matt Hokinson. He hooked me up with these. Intercollegiate Tennis Association shock absorber. Given to me by the one and only Oliver Summers.
Okay. Yeah, you can't just buy one of those. You need to be given that.
That's right. It's all. You know what they say? Your network is your net worth.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So, but this bad boy, this is like I want to say like the 2018 version.
Okay.
They've come out with new ones, but life gets busy. Sometimes you get content with playing mediocre tennis and you don't switch rackets. And that's been me.
That's it. So are Babolat, are they victims of their own success? I mean, did they get too big too fast, or are they now they're like, that's just obvious?
They cornered the market. I think because of Rafa, that Aero, the Babolat Aero, I think was it Aero Pro or something?
Yep, the Aero Pro, yeah.
That might have been the most popular racket at that specific time. And I mean, they're still big. They're just not as big. I don't know.
Right. I would say too, in the United States, even before Rafa, Andy Roddick was, he used the Pure Drive and like, obviously everybody loved Andy Roddick. Big serve, loud personality. The ladies loved him. And because of that, like, I mean, when we were growing up, Isaac, a ton of Pure Drives out there.
Pure Drive.
But I can remember a tournament. Yeah. I mean, I can remember at tournaments growing up, Babolat was the cool racket. Like if you had a Babolat racket, like you were legit. You were like, even if you weren't that good, people thought you were good.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause you had the Babolat. And then now it's at the point in time where it's like, nah, go with the Wilson.
Yeah.
I would say if you're looking for rackets, Courts Plus is a good spot because what they'll do is when the new versions of the rackets come out, they'll discount those older models. And it's the same racket. You don't come out with new technology in a year, type of thing. It comes out over time. Yeah. So you can get a solid racket, used racket for, $100, whatnot, rather than $250 or whatever it costs for a normal stick nowadays. So
yeah, dang, stuff is getting pricey, gents.
Yeah, it is.
Like hockey sticks. It's like, gosh, it's just insane.
It's it is crazy though. Like I can remember when we were growing up, like actually I only broke one racket ever. It was playing against Fargo North. I was playing a young lad named Austin Strom. He was a human backboard.
Yeah, one of those guys. Those are annoying to play against.
Yep, that's the Fargo North mold. You've got that, and then you've got the hockey player. That's Fargo North tennis for you.
That's right. That's right.
But I lost the first set, and I hit my racket against my shoe, and
that was it.
There it went, and Coach Youngs was not happy.
Dang. So my funny story I got to tell you guys about Fargo North tennis. So I was I've always been a little bit of a different duck, right? So senior year I was a captain, and I should have put that on there. See, dang it, missed opportunity. I was like, we're gonna have V-necks. Like, we're gonna do the V-neck thing. That was like right when V-necks were. That was like the origin of V-necks for guys, where it was like, yeah, this is a little like whatever, like it's a little weird, but a little not. So somehow though, we ended up getting these V-neck jerseys, and they were like massive. And I guarantee you, like, you could almost ask Unruh today or some tennis players, like, they have to be one of the worst jerseys in Fargo North tennis history, like, bar none. They were that bad. They were just horrible.
And I'm sure it was tough for you, Tom. You said that you were a late bloomer, hit puberty late, didn't have any chest hair to show.
I know, like it was so big, and like the V was like wide. It was so bad. So I was like, I actually had to wear an undershirt underneath it because it was so bad. And
that could be. Perhaps you inspired a new style though through that, the undershirt under the V-neck. I mean, I don't know if that one hasn't caught up or hasn't really caught up down here yet. Maybe other places though.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was. I mean, I definitely got some crap for it too. I mean, it was just an all-around horrible jersey choice. I'll never live it down.
Do you stay in touch with any of your high school buddies who played tennis, or any of your former teammates? Or no?
Not too much. Not too much. I still one of my buddies, Ryan Grindelin. He's a good friend of mine. But I still stay in touch with a fair amount of my high school friends. They're just they were from the hockey days. So, yeah, not too much on the courts.
Yeah. Are there any Are there any specific memories that you remember specifically about high school tennis that kind of stick out to you, or is it kind of way back when, where so you can't like really think of those things?
No, I just remember I just wasn't that good, and I think it's hilarious that I was the number one player at North, and I mean we were like state champs. So the class in front of me they had like 6 of the top 7 were seniors. I mean, they were just stacked. Like if it was like that was our year to beat Red River, was with them, and then there was just a massive, like a ginormous talent leakage from that class down to me, and we were horrible. So I when I think back on my tennis career, I just laugh because of just how horrible, like how good the class in front of me was, and then how bad my class was, in particular me. And again, I'm not saying like I'm a bad tennis player, right? Like I'm not, like I wasn't horrible. The other thing is I hit with my cousin Peter. This would have been, I hadn't hit with him in quite a while, and at the lake, and I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like my cousin is freaking insane. And just the difference between Minnesota tennis and North Dakota tennis. I was like, I was, very average, but again, there's not that many high schools. I was number 1 in our school. Like my cousin was, I was just hitting with him. I'm like, dude, I can't even comprehend how good you are right now. And you're like 3 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. That's what sticks out to me.
It is unfortunately a different world on the east side of the Red River, but I like to think that us North Dakota boys bring a little bit more grit to the court.
That's right. That's right.
That's what we'll say. I do recall like watching. I remember that year very vividly. Where you guys were, right up there with Red River, with like Max Pepcorn at one singles, and then Dan Physick, and then some other guys. And unfortunately, you guys couldn't get it done. But another school in Fargo did get it done. Another school in Fargo did get it done about a decade later.
Yep. That's right. And I think like Red Rivers, they're still good, right? Yeah,
they're good. Central has really come on as a powerhouse. I'd say between 2015 and what is it this year, 2023? Between those 3 schools, I think they each have at least 2 state championships.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
No go for Mandan.
The Braves are our buddy and friend and member of the show, Eric Porter, is a Mandan alum.
Okay.
And was an excellent player for them. Won the WDA tournament, I think, twice. But if I'm being honest here, a team from the West on the men's side or on the boys' side has not won the team state tournament since the 1980s.
That doesn't surprise me. It just doesn't surprise me. And then again, if you were to like go over and play like the high school teams in the cities, like, oh my gosh. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
I mean, it was the talent gap between my cousin Peter, who ended up playing D2, and it's just insane. And like my cousin Peter, like he wasn't, university or U of M, he wasn't there. He wasn't good enough. And I just cannot fathom how good these pros are.
Something in the water.
Something in the water. What I will tell me, my uncle told me, I'd be curious, David, from your perspective as a teacher. My uncle Kent, he was like, Tom, you just got to learn to hit the ball hard. It's like, just hit it hard first and then figure everything out later. You got to hit it hard.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly something that I wish I would have, like, I think there is, and Isaac, maybe you can speak to this too, but growing up for me, at least, like you play tournaments and whatnot, and you get so much in this mindset of like, can't miss, because especially when you're young, the kids who do really well are the ones who are pushers. They're the moon ballers.
Yeah.
Then eventually as guys get older, the players that excel are the ones that learn to take the ball on the rise, play aggressive. But it's tough to get out of that mindset of like, oh my gosh, like I just need to get the ball in the court. But like that is fun though, from like a teaching or coaching perspective, where now like you can see like a kid who's maybe 12 who's losing to another 12-year-old, but the kid is like hitting the ball hard. It's like, okay, this kid, if he continues to develop, is going to beat that kid 2 years from now.
Yeah. Yep. The long game. Yeah. Do you guys follow the YouTube channel Cult? I think it's Cult Tennis.
Yeah, I like Cult Tennis.
Is that a great channel?
Yeah, it is.
That dude's pumping out some great tennis content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it, like, one thing about YouTube too is like some of these guys, and maybe his voice is a little bit better, is sometimes like the narration isn't always like the best, but it's just like how they say it. It's like, I don't know why, but I'm listening to this guy, but yeah, his are super, super good.
Yeah, he's got some good. It's like the similar to the channel Baseball Doesn't Exist. If you follow that, which is, again, I'm not a baseball guy at all, but I will, like, his videos are fascinating.
Yeah.
And he's just good at sharing a story. And I think that that tennis channel is, for whatever reason, he makes it really interesting to learn about.
Yeah.
What's happening in in the tennis world and now the pickleball world.
Yeah.
But I'm not going there, not yet at the least. While I'm still on my knees, still gonna play the tennis.
Yeah.
So,
I think we should wrap it up there, Tom. I really appreciate you coming on and talking a little bit about your business, Fjell, and then also a little bit of tennis with us. Thank you so much.
Hey man, this was awesome. Again, I felt so bad for having to reschedule this because I had back-to-back noroviruses, and then we got COVID. So like there was like a 3.5 week of our life at our house. It was just horrible, and I felt so bad. I'm like, oh gosh, I got to get on there. But appreciate it. Thanks for being flexible too, and happy to share the story.
And I tell you what, Isaac and I aren't the brightest berries in the bush. We're gonna put out a Twitter poll for what to name your votes. We're the people. We'll get the public reaction.
Shoot me a DM on what the people say. I'm curious.
Yeah. Just don't name it the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yeah, exactly. We definitely don't want to sink.